Hello everyone, my name is Johanna, I'm 22 years old and I live in southern Japan. In the last video I talked about N3, everything leading up to N3, how I studied N3 and how I passed the N3. In this video, as you can see in the title, I want to talk about the next level, N2. So me studying N3 and me studying N2, the journey has been a little different for me since I've mainly been studying N2 in a language school. So you might not be in a language school, the situation might be different for you, you might not even live in Japan right now, but I'm gonna share my experience and how I've studied, how I've learned, and things that might be helpful for you to know even if you don't even live in Japan. So, the first thing I want to talk about are the books that I've been using through schools. There have been quite a lot of books, so I'm not going to go through them super thoroughly because then the video is going to be super long. But I want to show you and introduce the books that I've been using and talk about what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, and maybe some books that I would choose over other books instead. First kind of books I want to talk about are kanji books. So the two kanji books I've been using while studying N2 are these two. So this one I studied in school. This one, as you saw in the last video, I used to study by myself. I have to say though that we do get a lot of kanji sheets from our main textbook for studying kanji. So these haven't been the main focus for studying kanji, but to go more deeply into my kanji studies, I want to talk about the book I liked the most and the book I didn't like as much. So I will start with this book. We studied this book in school over the span of 6 months, the second semester of my first year of language school. And while it might be a good book for some people, the way we studied this book wasn't very effective, but we didn't really study how to write the kanji. So I think maybe the way that my teacher taught this book made me kind of dislike it because I felt like it was a waste of 45 minutes of every week just studying this, not really getting anything out from it and not really remembering all the readings. But this is what it looks like. This is basically the layout. They just list the kanji, they list the different readings and different words that use the kanji with their respective meanings, with some practice questions at the bottom and also a small text above that does use some of the words. So yeah, this is what it looks like. We didn't really study the writing. We just went through the kanjis, went to the next kanji, went to the next kanji, and that was basically it. So I didn't get that much practice out of this book, but if you study it in a different way, I'm sure it can be good. That's for this book. Yeah, like I said, if you study it by yourself and have a better study method than the one we used in school, I'm sure you can get a lot of good studying from this, but in my experience, it wasn't the best. So the other book that I introduced to you in the former video about N3 is this book. Obviously, I use this for N2 as well, and this is the one I would recommend for you. This is great for also self-studying. So the layout in this book is a little different than in the N3 one. So I'm gonna show you this right now and just talk about why I like this book. Yeah, so I think you can recognize the layout of this book since we went through the N3 one in the last video, but as you can see, there are no exercises and the amount of kanjis on each page have gone from 4 to 6. Definitely level up and you have to do exercises and maybe study in a little different way than the N3 one. So basically, you get the kanji, you get the reading of the kanji, a little space for practicing, which is no way near enough. You have to practice by yourself as well. And then you get some ways to use the kanjis. I haven't actually used N2 one that much because I just got busy with other things to study. But in terms of self-studying with the kanji book, I would say that this kanji book is the best one I've seen out of the few ones I've seen. And I can really recommend this one. I will link it in the description box below on wherever you can order it. I think I will find it on Amazon. So like I said before, for studying kanji, we did get a lot of practice sheets for kanjis that are not related to these books in class. And I did get a lot of good practice for the Jlpt from those sheets as well. But if you want to find a good book to study by yourself, I would say that the pink one is the best one. The next thing I want to talk about is our vocabulary book. So for N2, this is the book we used. Yes, this is the same company, the same brand as the Kanji book I didn't really like. I'm gonna show you what it looks like inside quickly and just talk about my feelings about this book. This is what one page would look like. As well as all the others before, there's a theme, in this case about money and finances. And then we have the words kind of lined up like this. Yeah, as you can see, just the words, the meaning, and some other ways to use the word. And then on the second page, we have practice and some more practice, and that's it. So again, for this one, it might be hard to study just by this book. You might want to make flashcards on your phone or physical flashcards to study them and to learn them. So while it was a good book, while it can be a good book, I didn't revise enough by myself. And there's just something about those books that just doesn't really speak to me that much. I don't know why. It's just my own problem, I guess. The next book we used, it's actually in the same series, but it's still a little different. It is this book that we used for grammar. Now, this book has been one of the keys for me passing N2. This book has, I don't know how many different grammar points. 520 different grammar points, and while some of them you can find in N3 as well, it's a really good book just for learning grammar points that will definitely come up in the test. So I would say just for studying like conversational Japanese, it might not be the best book for you, but in order to pass N2, this was a really great book. So we did study this in school, having a teacher teach us, giving us worksheets and tests on the chapters. But I would say that this is a book you could study by yourself. Some of the explanations are a little vague and a little unclear, even though they do come in English as well. I would really recommend this book. It's really small, it's really cute. I really like the colors, and this has been a key for me passing N2. So every chapter has 4 different grammar points. So they would state the grammar point in the beginning and then give you an explanation both in English and in Japanese, as well as a few example sentences with the grammar point and also how to use it together with other words. The explanations are very short and doesn't tell you that much, so you might want to search online because some of them just sound very similar, or some of them the English doesn't make sense at all. We did get worksheets for this a lot. We did get a lot of really good practice from this book, so I would recommend you to use this form for grammar. It has everything you need to pass the grammar part of the N2 test. The last book I want to talk about is our main text. Like I showed you in the last video, the orange book, this is the book we used for studying just grammar, vocabulary, reading out loud, listening, all kinds of things. Also kanji we learned from this book. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like inside and kind of how we studied it. So this book, it's kind of the same idea as the orange one I spoke about in the last video. Have a main text in the beginning, now longer and more complicated, both with grammar points, with vocabulary, with weird uses of particles, and a lot of me just scribbling because I think I was bored that day. I have some more reading comprehension, which is really good for the reading part of the Jlpt, so I would recommend this book for that reason. There is some reading, some writing, answering questions that might be hard to do by yourself, but if you have someone who speaks Japanese who can check it for you, that would be a really good practice. The grammar points here also very short explanations in English, just the literal translation, as well as some example sentences and some practice as well. You might want to actually research them by yourself as well online. We get some grammar practice, some vocabulary practice. One thing I like about this book is that it puts a lot of importance on particles connected to the words, so you don't just learn the words, but you learn how to actually use the words in sentences with the particles, which is a very big deal for me because my particle skills are not always the best. So for vocabulary, we did use the book I showed you before, but we also used a lot of worksheets, and they looked kind of like this. 3 times a week in the last class, we would get one sheet with sometimes grammar points and sometimes vocabulary. This one page It's just like a mini test that we would do. It wouldn't like go to our grades, but we used it just for practice. These sheets were very useful for learning. Actually, these do come from a book that I will link in the description, so you can check it out if you want to. Apart from all these materials that we've been using, we've also practiced a lot of listening comprehension because that is a big part of the Jlpt test. So if you haven't really studied a lot of listening or practiced listening up until now, I would advise you to do it as soon as possible and as much as possible, because the level does get higher, the speaking gets faster, the vocabulary gets harder, and yeah, it might be something you get kind of surprised by sitting in the test if you're not prepared, because it is quite a big jump from N3 to N2. So for listening practice, listen to Japanese radio and watch Japanese YouTubers, because that's fun while you're learning at the same time. Now that you're up in N2, your kanji level should be good enough for you to feel comfortable to read things as well. You should get your hands on some kind of book with chunks of text of Japanese to practice your speed and get used to reading. Getting used to picking out words, catching up kanji without actually pronouncing them in your head, just reading the kanji and understanding the meaning from what you're seeing is very helpful, because the reading comprehension is very difficult. The level does get harder and the time pressure also gets tougher in N2 compared to N3. So if you're kind of used to reading but it's not your favorite thing to do and you haven't practiced it that much, I would say practice it now. Just do it. Go do it. I think there are exercises on the Jlpt website as well, so you can go and check them out. Maybe get some prints out and just practice. The last thing I want to say for studying for Jlpt N2 is what I noticed coming up to the N2 level was that my vocabulary improved enough for me to be able to have new kinds of conversations that I wasn't able to have before. So for example, with N4 or N3 vocabulary, I could talk about normal things, maybe what I like, kind of what I'm interested in, what we've been doing in school recently and stuff like that. But coming up to N2, I learned some more technical words, some words that could make my conversations deeper and that could make me talk about new things, like maybe phenomenons or ideas or concepts of things that I just couldn't express before. The more I threw myself into these new kinds of conversations with the new vocabulary I had, the Japanese people I spoke with would use new words that I could learn and pick up that wouldn't have come up in the more simple conversations I had before. So by you using your new vocabulary and more advanced vocabulary in conversations, the conversations will get more advanced and you will get a lot of practice and studying from that as well. So it kind of serves both ways. I would say that use all the new words you've learned in conversations and you will find yourselves learning even more words, which will also be beneficial for your listening comprehension in the Jlpt test. One last thing I do want to say as well is that N2 is pretty hard, and depending on how long you've studied, it might be hard to actually pass the first time. Many people fail the first time, maybe fail the second time, and pass the second time, the third time, even the fourth time. It's fine to fail. And don't worry if you fail, because so many other people fail as well. I actually passed the test the first time I took it, which I was very surprised by. So I want to say two things about that. If you fail the first time, if you fail the second time, don't worry, there's always a next chance. And if you feel like you didn't really do a good job, you don't feel too confident after the test, you never know, you might actually pass the test. Like I did. I'm no genius. Passed the test with my terrible vocabulary. Anyways, those are the things I wanted to touch upon regarding N2. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Comment below the video or send me a message on Instagram. I'm always active on Instagram. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. And yeah, just good luck with your Jlpt studies and have fun with your Japanese. Don't take it too seriously and don't forget to just enjoy the language as well. See you in the next video. Bye!